Are you getting ready to apply, to actually sit down and do the application for your French long-stay visitor visa?
In this video, we'll tell you how to prepare and share the tips and tricks that we've learned as we've helped hundreds of Americans go through this process.
Hi, I'm Raina.
I'm Jason.
We are Baguette Bound, an American family of three living in the countryside of Southwest France since 2022. On this channel, we talk about moving, adjusting, and enjoying life in France. So if you are looking for a video on all the documents that you might need to bring to France, check out this video. Right now, we're just going to focus on the documents that you will need to be able to actually do the application for your long-stay visitor visa.
First up, official identity documents. Can't get anywhere without them. So, as a general rule, all the documents, all of them, can be in English. There's no need to translate anything into French if you're applying from within the United States. The general rule for French visas is that the documentation can be either in French or in the native language of the country that you are applying in. So, for the United States, English is perfectly fine for all these documents. First up, you need a valid passport. The passport must last at least around 4 months beyond the length of the stay that you are requesting. So if your passport will expire right around the end of that first year in France for a 12-month visa, do not pass go. Don't do anything first. Just renew your passport first to give you a little bit of extra time on that passport.
Yeah.
If you're applying as a married couple, you will need to include your marriage certificate. Just needs to be clear and legible. For a child or a minor's visa, you will need their birth certificate, the child's birth certificate, or some type of proof that you are the legal parent or the guardian and can take them on this visa trip. You are probably not going to need your own birth certificate to apply for the visa. It is not a requirement. One exception to this rule might be if you are an adult, you're applying with your parent, and you need to show that family relationship to your parent. In that case, your birth certificate might be useful.
Second, let's move on to proof of financials. Now, your goal here with showing financial proof is to prove that you have the financial means greater than the French minimum wage to support yourself while you're here in France. If you want more in-depth details on requirements for the visitor visa, you can check out this video, but we're just going to talk about how you want to present this financial documentation in this one. Now, the amount you need to show is currently around 22,000 euros per year before taxes, or 18,000 euros per year after taxes, and we're recording this in spring of 2026. This amount is set in euros, remember, and it will change a bit each year as the French minimum wage is adjusted for inflation and things like that. So the current dollar to euro exchange rate is going to play a role in how many dollars you are going to need to show. Again, at the time of this recording, in spring of 2026, these amounts are around 26,000 US dollars before tax, or 22,000 US dollars after tax.
Remember, that's per person.
Per person, yeah. So you'll see different numbers float around, and often that's because some people are talking about the gross before tax amount, and some are talking about the net after tax amount for the French minimum wage, or the SMIC.
That's S-M-I-C, the SMIC.
So be sure to consider which category the financial support you're providing falls into when considering which minimum might apply to you. Are you showing financial support that is before tax or after tax? And you'll want to match that up to the right number.
Right. You're going to need to show this amount in accessible cash. And you can do this in two different ways. Either you have pre-tax income that's going into your bank account from a pension or Social Security. Maybe you have a house rental contract, some type of regular unearned income. Or you have a lump sum amount that's kind of immediately accessible to you in a bank or a savings account. Perfectly fine, perfectly okay to use a mix of those two resources. You could have some money coming in through monthly pension payments and maybe a small lump sum in a bank account. Together, these can be used to add up to exceed that minimum amount. Perfectly fine to do both types. However, some things like the estimate on your house's worth, or a sales contract on your house that hopefully is going to go through, a statement of liquidity from a financial advisor, none of these things will work very well for this purpose. The French government wants to see that you have cash, something that you can use to start buying those cheese and the baguettes that you're going to want the day you land.
Now, if you are using a pension, annuity, or Social Security payments as your funds to support yourself, you're going to want to show a certificate with your name and the monthly amount you'll be receiving on it. Be sure these payments have started or you have documentation that they are starting when you are in France. France does not want to see that you have a pension that you might be able to use 10 years in the future. That is not going to count for your visa application today.
No, they're looking at that first 12 months. It's got to cover that first 12 months. So in addition to these, you'll need to provide at least 3 recent bank statements showing that these amounts are being deposited. If your Social Security or your pension plan is maybe starting right now, or it's just about to start, maybe you only have a month of a deposit, or it's just about to hit your account, that's okay too. As long as the pension or the retirement plan certificate that you're showing very clearly shows that the payouts are scheduled to start on a certain day before you arrive in France, that can be acceptable. If you're showing a total lump sum amount for the year, like a bank balance, make sure that you do the math with the current exchange rate and the dollar amount that you're going to be showing is in excess of the euro-based French minimum wage per person. Remember, showing it in dollars is okay. Just make sure that you do the conversion so you know how much to show in US dollars. Remember, like right now, the minimum cash balance amount per person is around 22,000 US dollars as of spring 2026, and this changes yearly. If you're looking this information up on your own, keep in mind that the minimum wage in France is usually shown as a monthly amount, and of course a cash balance in a bank account represents like 12 months of coverage. So you need that monthly French minimum wage, that monthly amount, times 12 in your cash balance in whatever bank account you're showing. And again, this needs to be in an account with cash that is immediately accessible to you. We'll say it again.
I know. Yeah. It may seem silly that we keep repeating this, but we've seen a lot of people who apply on their own and get denied because of the types of, it's a lot of documents that they use showing like estimated values or future values or in liquidity or, you know, Bitcoin. Like it's all these things that they know. Again, if you can't use it to buy a baguette when you get off this plane, they're not really going to be impressed.
Don't show your Bitcoin or Ethereum account numbers. They don't care about that. Yeah. So for things like a bank, a savings, or an investment account, show either 3 monthly statements or 1 full quarterly statement.
401k investment accounts, even though, you know, you can see the dollar amounts in those, they're not given a ton of weight because the French consulate knows that those values can fluctuate, and honestly, they don't know how liquid or accessible that account might be to you. So you can include them for backup, but know that they are not going to be considered the same way as accessible cash in a bank account or regular deposits they can see coming into your checking account.
Yeah. If you're meeting the minimum with just stocks or bond values, that probably won't work very well.
Right.
When we're working with clients through our visa service, we also try to create a very brief financial summary document to show in one super quick glance what all the client's finances are, right? Couple line items, couple dollar amounts that they can quickly see in one view. Here's everything that they have. This can really help the French embassy quickly see that you are qualified and understand what they're going to be looking for in all those documents that they're flipping through. Sometimes the packets are huge, and we want to tell them you're looking for this dollar amount. Find it. You want to make it easy for them to approve you. Remember, they are doing lots and lots and lots of these, and assume that you are going to be the last visa application of the day at 5 o'clock before they got to go home. Make it easy.
Make it easy. And I want you to remember too, these numbers are like absolute minimums. People have been denied even if they have this amount because they're going to look at your file as a whole picture. You know, they're going to look at the housing support you provide, the area of the country you're going to be living in, the narrative you give them in your letter of motivation to determine if this is actually enough to support yourself in France. So they're going to look at if you're close to the minimum, but you are staying with a relative for free and you just say, you know, you're planning to help them with their garden, you know, in retirement. That sounds like a pretty cheap life. You can probably pull that off. On the other hand, if you've got a minimum and you're like, yes, I'm moving to the Côte d'Azur and I've booked my initial stay at the Ritz, you know, it's not going to add up. I know that's kind of an extreme example, but you know what I mean? They're looking for a whole picture.
Yeah. Okay, so that leads into the third thing. The third item you need to provide is your proof of housing, your accommodation support. There's really 3 different kinds of housing proof that you can provide in your visa application. Either you're in an ownership situation, you own a property, you are renting a property, or you're being hosted by someone in France. So first up, if you own a house or an apartment in France that you'll be living at while you're here, you can show your property tax records and a utility bill. Easy enough. If you don't have those items yet, because maybe you just purchased your home recently, that's still okay. You can show maybe the final purchase agreement signed with the address, along with a brief written narrative explaining that the purchase happened on this date and here's the proof on these following pages. The intent, to buy a house or maybe an accepted signed offer is not enough. These things are not final. You really have to own the house. You need to have the keys and a piece of paper that shows that you got them.
Yeah. Second, if you're going to be staying with a friend or a relative, you can provide a signed form from them saying that they'll be hosting you. You can find a link to an official template for this form on our free resource list. And along with the signed form, you'll also need to provide a copy of that host's identity document, so maybe passport or the national identity card, and a utility bill or lease in their name. This is to show both who they are and that they have a right to the property that they've offered to host you in.
Third thing you could provide is if you've signed a lease. So a long-term lease, maybe furnished or unfurnished, perfect, you can provide that. If, like many of our clients, you're finding it really hard to figure out that long-term housing before you arrive in France, that's perfectly okay too. You don't have to have long-term things figured out. Short-term rentals can also work for the visa. For a short-term rental, at least if you're applying within the United States, you'll need to show at least 3 months of booked rentals, along with a letter clearly explaining your intent to look for longer-term housing after you arrive.
This short-term rental proof could be a receipt, a booking certificate from a hotel, a gîte, an Airbnb, an apart hotel. The key things are that the address, the dates of your stay, and your name are all on there.
This 3-month minimum that we mentioned isn't written down anywhere. It's not in the immigration code, and we can't speak for every location in the world. Every embassy in the world may have a slightly different in practice. But the French Embassy in the United States does accept 3 months of housing support.
At least at the time of this recording.
Yeah. And remember the part earlier where we talked about the embassy considers your whole package. So keep that in mind. If your financial support is a bit lean, a bit close to those minimums, having less expensive or several additional months beyond those 3, having several additional months of housing already booked and support for those might be really helpful to support your file.
Fourth, health insurance coverage. This is actually really straightforward. At the time of this recording in 2026, you need a policy for health coverage that's good in France, has 30,000 euros in coverage, and includes repatriation to your home country. That's it. Those are the requirements. Most policies at this level are not going to cover preventative, routine care, prescriptions, routine care of pre-existing conditions. They are really emergency catastrophic coverage. And if you're thinking 30,000 euros is not catastrophic coverage, I do want to reassure you that 30,000 euros will go a lot further in France than it will in the US. So that actually covers a lot more than you might expect thinking as an American. Now, if you do want a higher level policy than that, it's up to you, but just know it's not going to get you any bonus points from the visa application standpoint. You just need to meet the things that are the basic requirements.
Yep. Nothing wrong with going above and beyond, but you don't need to. One tricky part is remember that this policy must be valid for French residents. If you have a long-term visa and you're going to be living in France, you are probably going to be a French resident sometime after you arrive.
Yeah, you're resettling.
So if you buy a travel type policy and it directly states that it is not valid in the country of residence, you move here, become a French resident, this could be an issue, meaning that the French embassy may view the policy as no longer valid once you become a French resident. And this may be the thing that causes them to deny or send back your application. So just be aware of that. Look at the terms and conditions before you buy the policy.
Fifth, attestations. If you have not heard of an attestation, this is a paper that you write in France that will serve as a legal written commitment or pronouncement. Think of this as similar to a sworn statement in the US.
Yeah.
In the case of the long-stay visitor visa, you will need to write an attestation declaring that you will not practice a professional activity in France while you are living here on this visa. You'll also need to write a letter of motivation, which is another really common document when you're asking for something in France. Basically, this is just a letter explaining your intention in coming to France and why you're asking for the visa.
These documents do not need to be notarized. Just sign them yourself. Keep these short and directly to the point. Do not add too many things. They don't need your whole life story. Most importantly, don't include anything in your narrative that might lead them to think you might need a new visa. You might be looking for a different visa. You might be wanting to change visas in the near future.
Make it all align.
Just keep it simple. Reference why you're coming to France, why you want to be here, what you're going to be doing here on this visa that you're applying for.
Okay, now, as a reminder, everything we just talked about is very specific to the French long-stay visitor visa. There are other different documents if you were preparing for a different French visa application.
And when you're ready to do the application itself, you can check out this screen-by-screen walkthrough video to help you get through it on your own.
Remember, if you are feeling overwhelmed with all of this, you don't have to do it alone.
It's easy to feel that way, for sure. We do offer one-on-one consults to tackle specific questions that come up at any point during this entire process. Or if you want to take the visa prep completely off your plate because you got other things to worry about, you can check out our visa and healthcare service on our website.
Thanks for watching.
A bientôt.